I'm Marley Bird, and this is video 3 of the Nordic Knit Pullover. By this point, you have completed both the sleeves and the body of your sweater, and you are ready to join it all together to begin the yoke. We are working this in a 5-video series knit along, so if you have not started with the first 2 videos, go ahead, go watch those and catch up in no time. If you've completed your homework, go ahead and grab your pattern and your homework and we can begin. Before we jump into the yoke part of the instructions, I do want to readdress this section right here on the sleeves. I've since talked to the designer to get some clarification on the instructions, and I want to pass those along to you. We've agreed that this portion of the instructions here should not be on there. So if you're watching this video in the future, you'll probably not even see that portion there, which is good because it should not be there. So what will happen, just to make sure this is completely clear, let's all look at the smallest size, which would be knit 38. Which is essentially knit 1 full round because they have 38 stitches on their sleeve needle right now. Once they knit 38, they will slip 2 stitches and they'll slip 2 stitches and the first 2 stitches of the round onto a stitch holder. So here's what's happening. Let me move that aside. Here's my sleeve. Now I'm doing the larger size. I've knit all the way around with the number as indicated, okay? Here's the end of my round. Then it tells you to slip those stitches off of the needle and put them on a holder, okay? That's the end. What you're doing here is these stitches that you have put on a holder, those will match up to the stitches you put on a holder on the body, and that will become the underarm portion of your sweater. So the instructions are very, very simple in the sense of don't overthink it. You're knitting around and then you're putting those stitches from the ones you just knit on a needle and the ones that are in the first part of the round on a needle, and they're just, or not on a needle, on a holder, and you're just setting those aside, okay? So it's really quite easy. Once you've done that, and you've done that on the body of your sweater, so this is the body of my sweater, right here, these are my underarm stitches from the body. I can match those up to the underarm stitches on my sleeve. And on the next portion where we begin the yoke, we are going to knit around our sleeve. And then when we get to the end of the sleeve, where it's the other end of this section of stitches that are on a holder, we'll continue on to the body. Does that make a little bit more sense? Hopefully that clears things up for you as far as what you're doing on your sleeve. You're essentially just preparing your sleeve to be joined to the body of your sweater. You want to make sure you have enough stitches left on your needle, enough stitches pulled aside so that way you can seam it together for your underarm. Okay, let's move on to the yoke. As I mentioned, here's the body of my sweater. I have stitches on a holder over here, and I have stitches on a holder on the opposite side. Okay, those are my stitches on my holder over there. My yarn, where I left my yarn because I was supposed to knit around and then I slipped the last 4 stitches onto, my last 7 stitches onto a length of yarn, and then that's where I ended, okay? I am gonna go ahead and cut my yarn because the next set of instructions want us to work around my sleeve right here and then continue on to the body of my sweater. Well, my yarn is over here. So if I start knitting over here, my yarn is stranded across. Can you see that? So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm leaving a longer length of yarn because I'm gonna use this yarn here to seam those stitches we just put on a holder later on. So rather than having to add extra yarn later, I'm just cutting a really good length of yarn there to be able to seam those up. I'm just gonna tuck it down to the inside. Make sense? Okay. Now let me get a sleeve that actually is on some needles. Here we go. Ta-da! All right. Hopefully you can see all this. As I mentioned, here are stitches on a holder. Here are stitches on a holder. They essentially meet up, okay? So we have, this is our underarm portion right here. We have stitches here on a needle, working all the way around the sleeve, and when we meet up to the other side of the body right here, which is the other side of our stitches on the holder, we will continue on. So what the instructions tell us to do, we're supposed to knit, it says either 34, 35, 39, 40, 43, or 48 stitches from the sleeve. So you're going to knit around the sleeve here with the needle from your body and your main color yarn. Okay, so we're going to have our main color yarn here that I just cut off. I will start here on my sleeve. I can go in and I'm just going to knit. So I'm just adding my yarn. I'm going to start knitting and I will knit around my sleeve stitches, okay? When I get all of my sleeve stitches knit, I will place a marker and I will carry on through the stitches on the body. And the number of stitches on my body that I should have between the stitches that are on holders is exactly the number of stitches that you are supposed to knit. So we're essentially going to knit across the body to the next holder so that way we can attach the other sleeve. So let me get around the sleeve. You can see I'm just working the stitches around the sleeve here. When you get all of the stitches on the sleeve knit, your needle will be free so you can set it aside, or if you need to put it into your other sleeve so that you can work off of a needle on your other sleeve, you can do that, whatever works for you. But here I am, I'm to the end, so I knit that. I can get rid of this needle. And at this point, that's where I pick up my other needle from my body. Can you see that? So I knit, all of my sleeve stitches are now on the needle from my body, okay? They're just not joined right there. There's the armpit area, and those are the stitches that are on holders there, okay? So now I will work across the front of my body here all the way over to where my other holder is. And the number of stitches here is what is written on this yoke section. So you should have the correct number of stitches on your body of the sweater. So you should have the same number of stitches on the front and the back on either side of the sleeve. It's really that easy. So as I continue on here, I don't want to forget to add a marker. So I'm going to grab a marker here and add that. But then I just continue on working on the stitches that are on the body. It's that simple, okay? When I get to the other stitch holder, I will grab my other sleeve, work around that sleeve, making sure that I've matched up my stitches that are on a holder, and then continue on. Does that help? Okay. You just make sure you add those markers where you're told to add markers. Okay, when you get to the end of the round, all of your sleeve stitches will be attached to your body stitches. At that point, you're working on the top part of your sweater, which is the yoke of the sweater. So we have all of these stitches from the outside of our arms, across our body, all on our needle, and we're going to begin to work up from there. As you carry on, you will then continue on with the instructions. There's nothing new for you to learn at this point, but let's take a look at the written pattern so that I can point out a couple of things to you. So far, we talked about this portion of the sweater. So you knit across the stitches for your sleeve. Okay, those are the stitches that are on a needle for your sleeve. You place a marker on the needle, and then you knit that half of the body, place a marker on your needle, and then you repeat. So then you'll knit the other sleeve stitches, place a marker, knit the other side of your body, place a marker, and that'll be the start of your round. At that point, take a second and count how many stitches you have. Make sure you have the correct number of stitches. Now, this is important because if you're working on the large size only, you have to increase a couple of stitches. Okay, so it says you're going to knit 99, and you'll do a make one, and then you'll do that twice. So you'll knit 99, do a make one, knit 99, do a make one. All right, so that way you can get to 200 stitches. If you're making the extra large or the 2-3XL, only those sizes, you're going to knit 104 or 114, and then knit 2 together twice. So it's knit 104, knit 2 together, knit 104, knit 2 together, or knit 114, knit 2 together, 114, knit 2 together, to give you the 210 or 230 stitches that you need for the yoke of your sweater. Then you carry on, you look at the next page, and this is all you have to do for this week's instructions is right here. I want you to knit the number of rounds written for the size you're making. Okay, so if you're making any other sizes except the extra small size, then you have 3 rounds of just knitting, 4 rounds of just knitting, 5 rounds of just knitting, or 7 rounds of just knitting. And that is the end. That is all your homework I want you to do this week. Okay, that's the end of the instructions for this week's video. It's starting to look like a real sweater by the time this week is done. You could probably put it on and just test it out to see how things are looking. But once we get through the next 2 weeks where we get that shaping done, you're gonna have a sweater in no time. This is exciting to watch the success of all of you making this sweater who are sharing on social media. Please continue to do so. Use #MarleyBird or #Yarnspirations so that way I can find your work and smash your like button. Congratulations everybody, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks so much for joining me on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to hit subscribe. I've put a link right over there, or you can watch a couple of the videos I've already selected for you right down there. If you want to follow me on social media, I've put my links right over there. You can have all Marley all the time. Bye guys.